Good evening and welcome to the Gold, Guts, and Guns Hour here on YouTube and Periscope. My name is Tom Luongo. It's Monday, December 17th, 2018. We've got a lot to talk about. Today, we're going to continue to talk about what's going on with Patreon, censorship, deplatforming, unpersoning, whatever you want to call it, because this is the most important issue of the day. It's far more important than Donald Trump being... well, not what he was advertised. Far more important than even electioneering by the Democrats and stealing elections and voter fraud. Bigger than just about anything other than nuclear war. Because the truth of the matter is, free speech is the hallmark of a free society. I'm not the only person saying this. I'm not the only person to have said it. New. Silicon Valley does not believe in free speech. Washington, D.C. doesn't believe in free speech. Brussels doesn't believe in free speech. London doesn't believe in free speech. No one outside of the United States Constitution believes. We have it enshrined in our Constitution, and therefore it needs to be, in order for the government to act in an unconstitutional matter, it has to offshore or outsource the enforcement of the kinds of controls on free speech government wants. Corporations such as Google, Apple, Patreon, Facebook, Twitter, the rest. And the truth of the matter is, this is nothing new. This is the way it always works. This is a classic libertarian critique of what governments do when it intervenes into markets. It does this on purpose. That's what the government's there in many ways to do. It's not there to protect your rights. It's not there to arbitrate between states or people or counties or anything like that. This government is there to erect protection barriers for local, state, and federal level or interstate institutions, corporations, companies, what have you. Erect protection barriers, because that's what the law does. Forget all of the flowery horse shit you've heard in school. Government does, in practicality, these things. It erects protection barriers, it picks winners and losers in the marketplace. That's what it does. Doesn't matter what you want it to do. Doesn't matter what you think it should do. None of those things matter. I distrust all human organizations greater in size than a two-handed game of poker. Come up with this quote. The great Butler Shaffer who came up with that quote. But it's true. All organizations are care about one thing and one thing only first. It's survival, like any other organism. It's survival first and everything else second. Serving your customers, secondary. Survival is first. Mission statement, secondary. Serving customers, tertiary. Limiting its liability in the marketplace, right below survival. The government is an organization. It's an institution. It's no different than any other organization of people. And the minute it gets a source of funding that is orthogonal in any way or indirect based on the thing it is trying to regulate, it opens up the door for massive corruption. Does not matter what it is. We can have that discussion all day long tonight, later. But I want you to understand that that's what Facebook was designed to be from the ground up. The people who did put major investment money behind Facebook, most of Wall Street, okay, they did so because they saw Facebook's potential as a control mechanism. Same thing with Twitter. Why does Saudi Arabia own a significant portion of Twitter? They want to control the conversation. The idea that we have a free press in this country is insane. The idea that we have laws, speech laws, a legal system that protects individuals at the expense of corporations or at the expense of larger institutions, and certainly against the government. is ludicrous. Federal prosecutors have sovereign immunity. They can indict a ham sandwich and get it and give it 20 years. Michael Cohen is going to jail for really nothing. Oh, the guy's a skis bag. He's a sleazeball, but it doesn't matter. Libertarians have been saying for a long time, good evening, Rexman, I'm going to use your quote now. Don't steal. The government hates competition. I'll go one step further. Don't be evil. Google hates the competition. So, what happened with Patreon and Sargon of Akkad was completely predictable. I can be generous to Patreon, and I can easily be generous to Patreon, and say they didn't do this of their own volition. They were forced into it. I don't think GoDaddy was pressured into, unpersoning Gab or deplatforming Gab and Alex Jones. You show no spine, speaking of Michael Cohen. You show no spine. You knuckle under. You sleep with the fishes. You will eventually lose your business. Once you breach the trust with the public, does not matter what it is, what your business is. If you breach your trust with your customers, you will lose them and they will never come back. Patreon is never going to get its reputation back. It is easy to get customers. It is hard to get a reputation. Get them to come back a second time. First-time customers are easy. Repeat customers. That's the word I'm looking for. Proselytizers. Those are hard. People who will proselytize for your product. The people who will go out and do your advertising for you. They're hard. You have to earn those. And you have to keep them. And you have to keep earning them every single day. First time you screw up, they're out of there. Doesn't matter why. Doesn't matter. There is no bigger issue in the world today than the totalitarian control over speech. That's it. Because without speech, there can be no politics. Be no political action. There can be no organization. There can be no counter. Guns? No. Everything flows from speech. First Amendment, the Second Amendment's there to protect the First Amendment. Community standards are bullshit. I am responsible for the words I type, not Facebook. I am responsible for the words that come out of my mouth, not YouTube. I understand if YouTube wants to protect their brand. I understand if YouTube doesn't want me on their platform. But YouTube cannot write terms of service that are so broad, or Patreon, or anybody else, that are so broad as to be interpreted however they feel like it, depending on the day. This is the problem when you write rules. This is the problem when you write laws. All laws are dangerous and stupid, people. All laws are dangerous and stupid. Because all laws ultimately discriminate against somebody. Now, at some point, and laws against murder discriminate against murders. It's the edge case. So when you write a rule, if you've ever been involved in writing a constitution for an organization or whatever, you understand immediately how hard it is. If you've ever done parliamentary work, if you've ever spent an hour in a parliamentary session, you will understand how hard it is to write rules that make any sense whatsoever. And that someone cannot wordsmith their way out of, to interpret it however they want. Written constitutions are guarantees of nothing. Written contracts are almost guarantees. So this is why, ultimately, The only way, we'll never have a foolproof platform from which to launch our free speech from. Never. We'll constantly be fighting this battle against the organizers of those who want to control what we say. This will always happen. The only way that content creators of any stripe, no matter who they are, can protect themselves is to build systems based on a money and based on a currency that cannot be regulated, that has to be sovereign. The only way to protect your ability to speak freely is to be secure, ultimately, in the value and the ability to transact your money. You have to retain and regain your consumer sovereignty. It is the only way. Period. We do not have sovereign money. One of my basic tenets, one of my basic themes, the corrupt money begets a corrupt society. We have the ultimate in corrupt money. We have the near pinnacle of corrupt society. Every day the money gets more corrupt. Day the society gets more corrupt. I could spend an hour discussing why. I can go into all sorts of esoteric bits of Austrian economics, or I can just make it abundantly clear. When your money is based on debt, and that debt is payable to those who printed the money, the people who have the money want to spend it as quickly as possible because it's going to degrade in value over time. Money should accrete value over time. It should not bleed it away. So a money that the government can't control is the means by which all content creators have to get paid. This is why when I first saw Steemit last May, in May of 2017, I immediately signed up. I immediately started using the platform. I immediately started proselytizing for the platform. I immediately became its biggest advocate in every way. Why? Because Steam is designed for content creators and content consumers to cut out all the middleman, to cut out the Googles, cut out the Facebook, cut out even the ISPs and all of these people. Cut them all out. Just pay and just create tokens, translate and pledge those tokens as a tip to the content creator and allow them to directly get paid. We will need systems like this again. Whether Steam is the solution to the problem or not doesn't matter. It's irrelevant whether Steam is the solution. A solution like that is necessary. Today, we need a payment underlayer that cannot be taken away from us. How we then convert that payment underlayer into the currency we need to deal with, prosecute our daily lives, well, that's the hard part. That's the tricky part. Gab has talked about the guys at Gab have talked about this extensively. Andrew Torba, minute Jordan Peterson opens his mouth about this, said we need to come up with a better solution. Andrew Torba's like, I've already got a Patreon replacement up and coded and up and running and ready. Can't find a bank who will underwrite it. You're gonna have to start your own bank then. How do you do that? Good question. What country? Where? How much capital? Blah, blah, blah. All this stuff has to be done. Have to realize at the end of the day, you are responsible for every bit of your life. And not leave it in the hands of somebody else. I talk about this all the time in my newsletter. I talk about it all the time in my writing. You have to know where your counterparty risk lies. In everything in your life. Everything is counterparty risk. What's the possibility that the other person you're dealing with is going to fuck you over? What's your liability there? What's your risk? There are very few things in this life that carry zero counterparty risk. We don't have a control on our counterparty risk at this point. And the forces of control, the oligarchy, whatever you want to call them, the powers that be, the Davos crowd, call them what you want. I don't care. They know this. They know we don't have any control over our counterparty risk. They've erected massive institutions and systems to impede us taking back and minimizing our counterparty risk. Counterparty risk is why I prefer long rifles to carbines. El Vaquero. Lovely. So it's incredibly important to understand this. It's also incredibly important to understand that in an internet-based society, an internet-based business, non-internet-based money is worthless. Worthless. Same time, the United States government is weaponizing the use of the dollar. It is becoming the standard by which one can either be or not be a member of the society. Donald Trump is making this a prerequisite to be a member of the world. You can't use dollars if you don't meet our standards. That's crazy. Dollars are neutral. They're not the property of the United States. Governments have gotten to that point, and people who are in charge have gotten to that point where they believe that, like, they have the right, not the power, but the right. Insane. To regulate other people's property. That way. Down to whether or not they're even allowed to have a bank account. Blockchain-based solution is the solution. It's staring us in the face. Question is, can you get a bank? Can you charter a bank that will not run afoul of AML, KYC, FATCA, and the rest of it? That'll allow for the transfer. I talked about this in my video over the weekend. Here's some basic math for you. Patreon takes about 13% of your pledge from me. So $1 out of every $8 that you pledge goes to Patreon or the payment provider behind the scenes. Patreon takes 5%, and then anywhere from 8 to 10% goes to or 6 to 10% goes to the payment processor. Depending on the transaction, depending on where you are, the average bill every month for me is around 12%. Sure, that will go up. I'm sure that will go down with more subscribers, but it's around 12%. We can get that money lower. We can get, we can take that 5% off the top and just take stuff directly and process through Stripe if I wanted to. The point is, it's about 13%. So let's use that as a good 12 to 13%. Let's just use 12% as a good round number. Most cryptocurrencies have a transaction fee of well less than 0.5%. Even Bitcoin at its worst, even Ethereum during last year's insanity, during last year's mania, where the blockchains were completely shut down, overburdened, couldn't scale. Those fees never ran more than 2%. And you could always just say, okay, well, I'll just take longer settlement time, and pay less money. So there's 2%. So at best, on average, Bitcoin, Litecoin, whatever, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, all of those cryptocurrencies, pick any one of those good proof of work cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin-like cryptocurrencies. No more than 0.25%. No more than 0.25%. So if I'm not paying that, and I don't have to pay Stripe, and I don't have to pay Patreon. And then I got to give maybe 3 to 5% for the platform provider in order for them to do their business, right? They're going to take 3%. Subscribestar was going to do this on 3%. Patreon takes 5%. I'm sure somewhere between 2.5% and 3% is about what they need to do operations and make a reasonable amount of money and develop the platform. Perfectly reasonable to me. Okay, so now we're down to 5 or 6%. Now we're up to between 5 and 7%, 5 and 5.5%, maybe 5 to 6%. So we still have about 6 to 7% on average convert. Well, if I got to spend some money on foreign exchange fees because the only thing I can do is do a 2-stage conversion to get around the dollar, and I got to pay first to convert my Bitcoins into, I don't know, fucking Russian rubles and then back into dollars or something like, Polish zloty or whatever, and I got to convert back into dollars, and it costs me an extra 2%, I'll do it. If it costs me 10% in foreign exchange fees in order to get that done, in order to know without a fucking doubt that my business is going to, my checks are going to clear, my pledges are going to clear every month, I don't have to worry about whether or not I said something wrong on Patreon and they're just going to get rid of me. I said something wrong in public one day by mistake or whatever that they didn't like or somebody complained about. And by empowering, and do you see what happened here with Sargon of Akkad? You understand that Sargon's story is very simple. People who didn't like Sargon, in this case Nazis, selectively edited his work and then sent it to Patreon as a complaint. This is no different than what we used to say about Child Protective Services. Child Protective Services, by the way, empowers the child to get back at the parents. Okay? At a fundamental level. There's always the threat that Child Protective Services, whatever you call them, they listen to the child first. Doesn't matter. They're always right. Child's always right. Parent's always wrong. It empowers, it creates a power gradient that is not there. Is not necessary. Same thing doesn't matter what you're talking about. It doesn't matter what business you're talking about. It doesn't matter what human interaction you're talking about. When you create an institutional bulwark, you create an opportunity for one person to use that bulwark against somebody else. Yes. So what I'm talking about here, Mark Bogosian just hit the nail on the head. Like, you need to have both a bank and a crypto exchange. And it has to be the same company. I don't know if it has to be the same company or whatnot, but it has to ultimately be those things. And then on top of that, you can do the IT work. The IT work can all be open source and peer-to-peer in terms of its structure, right? All that stuff can be done as a peer-to-peer network structure, so that they can't actually, come in and force you to take your servers down, or Amazon to say, no, you can't host this on AWS, or Microsoft says you can't host it on Azure. Well, fuck you. We'll host it peer-to-peer. Well, so maybe it's hard for us to do video streaming that way. Okay, fine. We'll figure something else out until we can get better video streaming. Once there's 5G, it won't freaking matter. Because bandwidth will be so freaking high that it will not matter. And we'll be able to stream in 720p over peer-to-peer networks. Because the latency will be fucking ludicrously low. There's not one barrier that governments erect that cannot be solved by the studious application of technology. Not one. It's a matter of fact, it's always technology that undermines all of their grand plans. Governments are always fighting the last war. They move really slowly. They're not particularly forward thinking. I mean, seriously, we're talking about the DMV writ large. The post office writ large. The post office today is brilliant compared to the way it was. You have to remember that. It looks like this big monolithic hydra, multi-headed hydra that can swat you down like a bug tomorrow. They're not that smart. They can go after you. For me, can't go after all of us. Policing and enforcement of laws are done by going after one person out of 1,000 and hoping the other 999 don't revolt. Too bad. Too bad. There's these people called the Yellow Vests. I mean, I'm at that point now where I'm like, we all need yellow vests and march on Washington. Crazy. So while this is a rant about what we need to do, it's also reminding you why we need to do it, why it's important. And I love what I'm seeing from guys like, I can't believe Sam Harris gave Patreon 3 days fucking notice, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. He called them and he said, I'm shutting down my service in 3 days. I've got all of my email. I got the emails from all of my subscribers. I'm going to send out shit to my list, and I'm going to migrate them all over the next 30 days. And whatever revenue I lose. It's on me. I don't care. I'm not working with you fucking people. He's one of the top 5 earners on Patreon. Jordan Peterson's going to leave. Dave Rubin's going to leave. This is big to them. This is big. And they want, and I know that at a certain level they expect this and they want this. Because they're hoping that they can push these people off of these popular platforms and make it hard for them to build bigger audiences. I know that. I know they're thinking in those terms that this is an attrition thing. We've got more money than you, we'll attrition you off. But I got news for you. Governments need billions to go after to do shit like this. These people need thousands to live their lives. Okay? How do you implement such a system when the underlying technology cannot be trusted? The Clipper chip is now part of the CPU silicon. Windows has who knows what in it. Trust a Chinese chip? I don't know. There's always counterparty risk in something, right? I mean, you have to realize that if they've been able to, let's ask this basic question. All these fucking encryption backdoors have been in all of these chips from the beginning, and guess what? The government can't crack SHA-256. They could. They'd have already taken down Bitcoin. They chose to take down Bitcoin in a different way. As opposed to just hacking it and double spending and killing it that way. They just created a futures market and then bombed the shit out of it. They created paper Bitcoins to bomb and flood the market with, which is exactly what they've done to gold and silver and oil and natural gas and every other fucking thing. And then every once in a while, some guy gets fined $10,000 or $15,000 for naked shorting. Or every once in a while, somebody high profile like George Soros gets hit for, $2 million fine for naked shorting the Hong Kong dollar. Meanwhile, he makes $30 billion. Like, it's not even his tax rate, for fuck's sake. So, I say to you, there comes a point where there are no guarantees in this life, right? There are none. But you work with the technology and you work with the stuff that is as close to foolproof as possible. And I can explain to you in about 4 minutes a cryptocurrency security mule system that is unfucking crackable by anybody. Because it's not that hard. And no matter what they have, no matter what they think they have, you can't crack everything. You can't crack all the blockchains all at once. No, I didn't see that, Ryu. About the guy and the girl that the French authorities hit so hard their eyes came out. You know, I've talked about this again. This is stuff I've talked about in my monthly newsletter. I've talked about this. I've talked about multi-layer blockchain security mule systems. There are multiple blockchains out there right now. Komodo, Decred, so many of them out there right now that are building these systems. Arc is building has a similar system where their blockchain then sends an audit block to the Bitcoin blockchain, and every 10 minutes the whole freaking thing is backed up. Okay, I mean, it's insane. Now all of a sudden you've got to hack both blockchains at the same time in order to prosecute any kind of 51% attack. And now a small blockchain gets Bitcoin's massive hashing. I'll tell you one step further. They should all be sending audit blocks to each other randomly. The top 20 proof of work blockchains should all randomly be sending audit blocks to each other's blockchain on a 15 or 20 minute basis and just pay the freaking cost to have that transaction cleared. And randomly pick 5 or 10 of them, have like 5 or 10 in a group, and just randomly send a block and audit it. Send it back. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but once you start doing that, and all of a sudden, like, they're all auditing each other and shit, and who the hell could ever 51% attack a neural network of small blockchains? Because at that point, the hashing power goes up to the power of the hashing power of each blockchain, as opposed to it being additive. And now all of a sudden, within 15 freaking minutes, you know, it will take the computing power of the next century to hack Bitcoin gold. Oops. This is not hard. This is not rocket science. And I know for a fucking fact that everybody in the industry understands this already. That's the future. Don't need it. But again, not hard. This shit's not hard to implement. You know, I want a business. I want a business that I know that I can see. Commerce stops when things are unsettled. Right? This is one of the major things that the central banks go on and on and on about. On Wednesday, the FOMC is going to come down from their ivory tower and tell all us plebes what the new interest rate's going to be and what things are going to look like for the next 3 months and what we should prepare for. Right? Their whole thing is just a big Wizard of Oz thing, trying to project confidence and project competence. We know what's happening. We're the philosopher kings who understand it all. With that projected confidence and stability, commerce can proceed. Supply chains can be built. Okay? It's not about how much fucking money's in the system or liquidity or any of this other shit. All that shit comes from understand a fundamental confidence that the system that works today will work tomorrow. And every day that Trump sanctions somebody else, he's undermining that fundamental trust in the US dollar. Trump thinks that our power comes from our military and comes from our righteousness or some shit. No, it comes from the fact that we've never defaulted on a bond ever. We've never missed a coupon payment. No matter how much debt we have out there, we're still paying our bills. That's what it comes from. That's why they should be scared of crypto. And that's why they should be scared of us if we ever build a truly crypto foundation content delivery platform. But Steam got there first last year. The blockchain's already there. Tokens are already in circulation. You can build whatever app on top of it you want through smart media tokens. Shit's already there. All you got to do is build it. But then you have to be able to interface with the rest of the world. You have to be able to interface with the practical end of the world. But we'll be going to distributed DNS and hosting and all that shit. I mean, domain name registration and all that stuff. All that stuff's going to be a thing of the fucking past within 5 years. We did default on gold, but everybody else already had too. That's why when we defaulted on gold, it took 10 years to get the confidence back in the United States. It took 10 years until Volcker raised the prime interest rate to 21%. Well, the prime rate, he raised it up to 13.5%, the Fed discount rate. Confidence in the U.S. dollar was so low, we issued Swiss franc bonds during Carter's administration. The Fed deplatformed gold in 71. You're right, they did. There are some interesting cryptos out there relative to gold at this point that are also very interesting. But I'm not, that's not what I really want to talk about tonight. So this stuff's really important. It is absolutely imperative that we get this through our heads. Because we will not be allowed to congregate like this at some point. And we won't. And once you take away the ability of people to congregate, take away their ability to revolt, you take away their ability to do anything, then what? We need to have a platform that allows us to freely say whatever it is that we want. If you do not believe that you should be defending the most odious sons of bitches on this planet, right to say whatever the fuck they want, and you don't believe in free speech, I think Andrew Anglin is a freaking mouth-breathing moron. Whatever. Let him say whatever the hell he wants. Damns himself by speaking in public. Our media in the U.S. is private in name only, just like most of our technology companies and most of almost everything are private in name only. I mean, the truth of the matter is, and this is something that truly pisses me off. Bob Higgs and Tom Woods did a lot of great work on this back in about 10 years ago on Lew Rockwell and the Mises Institute and whatnot, talking about the militarization of the post-war American economy and how much money we've actually lost in that militarization, how much capital was actually destroyed because of the putting it towards inefficient government systems that were built to build weapons as opposed to building things people needed. And that's where we are today. So we cannot allow this to continue. And when you think about it, you think about the post-World War II economy, you think about how it's evolved. We sit there and we talk about how we beat the Soviets and we won the war over communism by doing what? By creating maybe the perfect version of Mussolini's fascist economy. The thing is just private in name only. To anything that actually matters. To all the strategically important industries, private in name only. Not really that much difference between the banks and the oil companies and the government. They're all the same thing. At least in China and Russia, they're just honest about it. Gazprom, PSG joint stock company state-owned enterprise. CNPC is a state-owned enterprise. Petro Vietnam is a state-owned enterprise, joint stock company. Go look at the names of these companies. They're just honest about it. Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, General Electric, General Motors. They're not real companies. They trade on the stock market. You can buy Gazprom stock. You can buy Petro Vietnam stock. Trades on the Hanoi Stock Exchange, by the way. No real difference. Difference is perceptual. Perceptual. It's not mechanistic. Difference is in like, not kind. No important industry in the United States is free. All tightly regulated. Cars, roads, electricity, water, food, weapons, everything. They own it all. There are no private waterways in the United States. They're either owned by the federal government or the state governments. Water! And fucking libs have the right, have the temerity to complain about Nestle? Think about it. At least Nestle's trying to do something with the fucking water as opposed to just pollute it. You rush a miracle man, son, you get rotten miracles. Give the government control over the waterways, you get rotten water. Oh, sorry, forgot education. Absolutely. The most important one, education. Why they hate the internet, guys? So much information that they're at your beck and call. Some of it good, some of it bad. Like, there's good, I mean, what are the I mean to tell me that basic functional education, how to read, how to write, how to do math, how to balance a checkbook, you know, basic stuff, right? All the basic stuff. Grammar, all that stuff can be learned on the internet. What the fuck do we need schools for? What do we need a public education system for? We have the internet. Kids can learn. They have their parents. Kids can learn. Whole system is designed to rob you of your children, to rob you of your reason, to rob you of your ability to speak freely. The Russians are moving in a completely opposite direction of where we're moving. I don't know, but the Chinese are erecting the ultimate panopticon. Putin's like telling everybody to go to church and have babies. Insane. Never thought I'd live this long. $180,000 pages in 2016. There are 180,000 pages of regulations in the CFR. Are you sure this is just like 40 CFR, Part 132, which is like the environmental regulations? Because I've read a lot of those. 30 to 40% of those would be rewritten every year. Only big businesses can afford to either follow or disregard that. Trust me, I used to work in friggin' environmental testing. I can tell you that is a minefield. I used to read those regulations to try and like have some clue as to what our liability was and trying to build laboratories and stuff. It's insane. So Mark Bogosian reminds us that he's a registered large trader with the SEC, which means that there's a guy at the SEC that checks every trade he makes in order to ensure his compliance. Now, how many guys like Mark are there in the world? How many guys then do we have to have at the SEC in order to ensure that Mark stays in compliance, that guys like Mark stay in compliance? And then they don't do their job anyway. Well, they just watch porn all day. And then when guys like Lloyd Blankfein get away with murder, literal murder, they're too scared of him to actually prosecute him for anything. They give him a slap on the wrist, a little bit of a fine, they send them on their way. By the way, speaking of Lloyd Blankfein, oops, Malaysia isn't the SEC. That's going to be fun. Waiting for Trump to come out and tell everybody that Malaysia is a vile Islamic state that needs to be destroyed. You wait. Then you'll know for sure who Trump truly is. Anything else, guys? Oh, Blankfein is the biggest scumbag. Doing God's work, baby. Aren't we all? Elvic Harrow says the bureaucracy is growing to meet the needs of a growing bureaucracy. Unknown. My complication had a little complication. Where is Goldman Sachs stock going? According to Martin Armstrong, it's going into the toilet. It's in serious trouble. I haven't looked at it recently, but not good. It made a high last year and it hasn't. Out of curiosity. Yeah, I mean, it looks terrible. Yeah. Okay. Goldman stock since October has dropped 75 points. It's shed 30%. And it's in complete free fall. There's maybe some support at $1.25. It's trading at 168. The Department of Redundancy Department. Yeah. Under redundant says see redundant. Oh, it's you know. How will the emperor maintain control without the bureaucracy? Quote. 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 Where'd that one come from? Next line is the regional governors will have direct control over their systems. Fear will keep the local systems in line. Fear of this battle station. Obviously, Star Wars. Sometimes you're the donkey and sometimes you're the ass. I love you guys. What do you make of the Japanese activating carriers for the F-35? There's going to be war with China? I don't know. I haven't really been following it, to be honest with you. I mean, I saw some stuff about Japanese militarism, but it has not been on my radar the last couple days. For the last few days, I've been focused on other stuff. I just finished an article for Strategic Culture about Turkey, which I find really interesting. Because, you know, if we actually send Gulen back to Turkey, that'll piss a lot of people off, including the Clintons. Sending Gulen back to Turkey is North on 60. Star Wars has a lot of wisdom in it, especially in the politics stuff. Especially the politics. All that stuff in The Phantom Menace that people didn't like, those are my favorite scenes in the movie. Like I told my last wife, I never drive faster than I can see. Besides that, it's all in the reflexes. Big Trouble in Little China. Jack Burton. Go. I have no idea. I haven't been following the AT&T case at all. Well, Japan is having to. I mean, remember. I mean, speaking of Japan, I think User 13 makes a very interesting point. That Japan no longer trusts the United States to defend it at this point. So, this is part of the reason why Abe is like playing, will he, won't he, in his little, mating dance with Putin, because Japanese need a peace treaty with the Russians, but we won't allow it. They need some more security. Okay, now I'm impressed. More world news. Like, I didn't know it's all in the reflexes. I'm like, oh, it's from the opening scene. Yeah, it's freaking... Dude, it's one of the great movies of all time. Are you kidding? The bag egg. Wind, fire, thunder, all that stuff. That's what I thought. Tom, does your goat say, Tom, I am your goat? No, she doesn't. She says, ah! And then I feed her. That's what she said. And that's pretty much a direct quote. Ah! I can't quote The Thing. I've only seen it once. But I can quote most John Carpenter movies. Well, most of the good ones. I'm not a big fan of horror movies, so I've never seen Halloween. But, Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. So those movies back and forth. Yeah, he does. That's what she says. 6 demon bag. That's what Trump needs right now. God, I love that movie. And no, The Rock really shouldn't remake it. I mean, I know he'll mean well and he'll try really hard. And I mean, if it's as good as the Jumanji remake, it'll be fine. But that was fun. I never actually saw the original Jumanji, to be honest with you. Watched the remake, I don't know, a few months ago. It was actually really quite funny. I can almost stand Jack Black for an hour and a half. I was amazed. Oh, God, I love that movie. It's Big Trouble in Little China is brilliant. It's so ahead of its time. So ahead of its time. Such a great movie. Dude, I own that on Blu-ray. Like the special edition one with Carpenter, and I buy it. I buy like all of those movies so that I have The Thing, Escape from New York, and Big Trouble in Little China. And I have them all. I gotta get Vampires. I haven't seen that since I saw it in the James Woods. Not a good movie, but my God, James Woods. In a Carpenter movie, doing the Kurt Russell thing. But those things are worth like picking up for like $6 or $7. Blu-rays on Amazon, whatever you can get them, for the commentary tracks. Because Kurt Russell and John Carpenter, old friends, two moldy old libertarians getting drunk and doing the thing and doing the commentary. It's fucking brilliant. That's worth the price of admission, even if you've seen the movies 20. So that's worth $6 to me. That shit's fun. Racing Law, yeah. Kim Cattrall in her prime. Come on, man. Gonna complain. It was easy on the eyes. But no, I'm completely gay for Kurt Russell. Doesn't matter what he's in. Doesn't matter. Make the worst movie in the world watchable. God, I once saw Sky High for Christ. That movie was terrible. He was funny. At this point, I just want to move to the moon, says Ryu Shiksa. Well, give Putin 15 years. You might be able to. You want to talk about living free? That's not living free. Even under the, I mean, I get the point, but to be pedantic, you got to think this is like being like living under the ocean or living on your own private island. Life is fucking hard, dude. The world is hostile and wants to kill you. So The moon is a... I'm not going to quote Heinlein. The moon is a harsh environment. There's a book I could never read. Nuke the swamp from orbit. Oh, yeah, now we're just quoting everything now. The only way to be sure. This is what happens when you watch movies instead of doing your math homework. That's not true. I did my math homework. And watched a lot of movies. How do you think I got all my math homework done? Because the math was easy. All I had to do was fill the hours before I had to go to bed. All right, guys, it's 56 minutes, and I think we've devolved into not talking about anything very interesting. If you guys don't have any other questions or comments or whatever, will there be a railgun on the moon? Let's hope not. Well, they certainly have all the bunkers built for it. That is surviving nukes. All right. I've done my civic duty for the day. I've spoken to a microphone for way too long. I think that's about done. We watch movies while doing that. Exactly. $37 in a row? All right, that's it. All right, I'm out. You guys, you take care. This has been the Gold Goats and Guns Hour. We end on a Kevin Smith joke because, well, why not? You guys be good. We'll talk soon. I'll probably have a video out tomorrow. We can try and have one out every day this week. And 8:30 Friday nights, we'll do this again. You guys take care. You have a great evening. If I don't see you before Christmas. By the way, there will not be a live stream on Christmas Eve. You can forget that. You guys be good. You take care. Keep your stick on the ice.